Yeah, I mean that's something that's interesting that's come out of this culture is that I don't believe anybody when they say so and so's a racist, so and so's a fascist, any of those so and so's a misogynist. I
The
just sort of
perfect cover, isn't it?
assume,
It's a
huh?
perfect cover for actual fascists.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah,
Nobody
it
but
is.
nobody buys it anymore. They're like, yeah, sure, sure. I'm sure they're fine actually. Um, the thing about kids that you mentioned earlier is interesting because I mean, I remember being sort of like a mean girl when I was about 11. Like I remember us just picking a girl in the class and she would be the one who wouldn't be invited to the sleepover ever. She would be the only one in class. She was the one that we would make up. This sounds really terrible, but we were kids, so, we would, like, make up rumors about her to spread around, and I think this is pretty common for girls. Um, I stopped doing that after elementary school, but it seems that some people did not stop doing that, and they continue to engage in those exact same behaviors as adults. I'm sure this has happened about to you. This has happened to me. We see this happening to people all the time where literally really terrible rumors are made up about people and spread around. There's no truth. Nobody really looks into the truth. People are obviously specifically excluded, canceled. Often it's never really explained. You don't even know why. Why wasn't I invited? Why doesn't this person speak to me anymore? And then there's more overt stuff like firings and yeah, really public ostracizations and vilifications. What do you think is, I guess, different about those people who continued that behavior past grade 5?
Such an interesting question. I mean, I'm not a qualified child psychologist or indeed a psychologist or anything. It is going to be speculative, whatever I say here, but I think you've hit on something very interesting, which is the infantilism that's going along with all of this. When I see the way these activists behave, and sometimes you see, the sort of extreme intersectional activists, you see these viral videos and they're just screaming. They're just screaming in the woods, or they've got together for a scream, a sort of collective scream. And I saw one guy that last week interviewing a trans activist. He was going up to this group of trans activists and, can we talk? Can we have a conversation? They were just banging their drums, screaming. Then he got one guy there saying, can we have a conversation? The guy just blew a whistle at him. And he said, well, can we talk? And he just kept blowing the whistle over and over again. Now, what you're seeing there is definitely, those are people who haven't grown up.
Yeah.
That's not how adults should behave. And it's probably a failure, as I say, of socialization, a failure of education. I think a lot of that has got something to do with it. I think they've been instilled with an incredible sense of entitlement,
Mhm.
which is a new thing. That degree of entitlement, I don't think uh, would have existed among so many people if you go back to my parents' generation, my grandparents' generation. Well, I suppose my grandparents' generation were a generation who actually endured hardship insofar as they endured a world war, and I think when you've experienced hardship of that kind, then you don't think misgendering qualifies. I think you kind of a perspective is developed automatically. But yeah, I think a lot of this is to do with people who haven't grown up, and it's not necessarily to do with how well you're educated, insofar as some of the most infantile behavior I've seen has come from people with PhDs, people who are academics. And I think so, therefore, this ideology has infantilism built into its core. And when it captures various institutions, they all become infantile. I mean, I think that's, if you take, there was a conference called Resisting Whiteness at Edinburgh University, where the organizers had said that there was
You come, you show up, you peel your skin off,
well, I mean, it was quite
burn it.
they had a separate space. They had a separate space for, they separated people by skin color. But they also had a Q&A after the event where they said white people weren't allowed to ask questions. But then that raises the question: what if you're half? What if you're mixed race? Do you get to ask half a question? How do they even know? It's not always obvious. So that's a childish thing to happen. But that was done by adults in a university, in a top university. So I think, yes, I think it's to do with a complete lack of the capacity for critical thinking.
Mm.
The first lesson of which is that there is always something to learn from your detractors, right? There's always a kernel of truth in everything that people say, and there's always merit to listening to to having your ideas challenged. But
Yeah.
these are people who are fixed to a script which has been provided for them, which is the same as any ideology. It's the same as any fundamentalist religion.
Yeah.
You know, the ISIS fighters don't think critically. They have a script handed to them, a holy writ, and it's interpreted for them by the worst demagogues in that community.
Mm.
And the same goes for any form of ideology. If you're a strict whatever Marxist, or if you're a strict it can be anything. It means
Feminist.
a feminist. It can be any. If you have a strict set of rules,
Yeah.
it means you're not thinking for yourself. I like to be surprised by people's opinions. I don't like to be predictable. I think that's a real loss when people can't say, oh, well, hang on, maybe I'm wrong about this. Maybe
Yeah.
let's
Yeah.
talk to someone who disagrees.
Yeah.
Maybe I can come out of this. If you take someone like Daryl Davis, who has de-radicalized members of the KKK, can you imagine that? This guy has sat down with them and taught them out of this, right? I couldn't do that. I don't have the ability to do something like that. But those people were people who were not thinking for themselves, thinking from a script. It's really, really rife. And I tie it to, that's what I suppose it's what children do, because children crave someone to tell them what to do. That's why they all need discipline, I guess.
Right. Yeah.